Hey, do you remember Flash? Do you remember Adobe Flash? Do you remember Flash animations and Flash games? And do you remember Adobe Flash? Yeah, so obviously a lot of people have already made YouTube videos about the end of Flash. And it is a bummer, but it's hard for me to be too sad about it just because of the scale of archival that's happening. If you miss these games, just download Flashpoint. I mean, they're pretty much all on there. Sorry, this jacket is really hot, and this is a stupid idea. So knowing what we know about Flash archival projects, I think the main obstacle to finding new Flash games to play in 2021 is volume, honestly. There's so many games out there that you basically would have had to grow up with one to even know it existed. So I wanted to take a look at some of those games and dedicate a whole episode as like a special kind of to Flash. So we're gonna start by looking at like a rapid fire list of games that I like. Then we're going to look at a specific Flash website that I think deserves a lot more recognition. And then we're going to do a really quick profile of an internet creator, an animator who is still animating in Flash. And then we're gonna talk about Bionicles, because Bionicles are dope as hell. Welcome to the second episode of Alex's Shit Show, the show where I show you shit. I think I'm just gonna drop the title, to be honest. I'm realizing I don't need to stress about this because I don't need a title. This is YouTube, this is not daytime TV. So why am I doing a Flash retrospective when there are so many on YouTube already? Well, I alluded to this, but as good as a lot of those videos are, they pretty much all focus on the same 20 or 30 games, which to me is a crime. And even the forgotten ones like don't touch on a lot of games that I remember really fondly. And so I wanted to just share some memories of that, you know, maybe turn some people on to games that they haven't seen. And these are not going to be obscure games necessarily. Some of them will be, but it's mostly just things that I feel are forgotten or overlooked. All right, let's get started. The first game I'd like to talk about is called Fishy. This game was everywhere back in the day. I'm certain that people will remember it in the comments and stuff, but like, I think it flew under the radar for a lot of people just because of how basic and unassuming it is. It's basically like a very simple scale expansion type game, like, you know, something like Katamari or Donut County, where literally the only thing you do is you move around with the arrow keys and you eat fish that are smaller than you so you can get bigger. And I came to this game kind of laughing at it, you know, how dinky it is and how simple the mechanics are, and there's this like really funny short ass music loop in the background, and the controls feel slippery. But it did hold my attention. After a while, I was still having a lot of trouble, still dying a lot, but things were starting to click, and I was getting in the zone, and I ingested some substances, and something happened. I'm not sure what it was, but I had this authentic moment of Gnostic enlightenment, where it was like I could see the game's code splayed out before me, and I suddenly understood the entire game perfectly. I knew how to move around, I knew how to cancel my momentum, and it flowed out of me like an ancient hymn. The only thing that stopped me 2 hours later was when I realized my wrist felt like it was on fire. The arrow keys on modern computers really are not forgiving, but this, like, in my opinion, is like the archetypal Flash game experience, right? Where you're bored, so you start it up and you play for 10 minutes and you're like, this is stupid. This is not worth my time. And then you play for another 15 and you're like, oh no, actually this is the best game ever. And then you realize that no, it's actually both. It can totally be both. The next game I want to talk about is not exactly a game so much as it is like a interactive physics toy. Honestly, a lot of my favorite Flash games were more like this, you know, stuff like Falling Sand or Powder Game, or even, honestly, I think Interactive Buddy kind of qualifies. Side note, was I the only person who was nice to my Interactive Buddy? I definitely experimented with the weapons for a long time initially, but then after a while I just couldn't bear it anymore. Like, he's just a baby. But this game, Acrobats, is a physics toy. I got a lot of relaxation and fun out of just tossing these little guys around and watching them hold hands and stuff. It's so simple, but it's just, I wish there were more mobile games that were like this, you know, that were just for a quick kind of sensory stimulation fix. with like nice little moving parts and stuff that you could like screw with. Maybe they're out there. I know if people have Rex, please let me know, but I don't think they're the kind of thing I'm looking for. But the other reason I wanted to shout this game out was because of the developer, Vector Park. Also the name of the website that they used to run, where they would host these Flash-based kind of like avant-garde puzzle games. I don't know, like a little bit point and clicky, but more tactile than that, and you know, puzzle-based and physics-based. These are an amazing set of games, and they're available converted to HTML5 on the Vector Park itch.io page, and I highly recommend them. I wanted to take some time to talk about like Feed the Head or like Windowsill or something, but honestly, you can make a whole video about those games. I didn't have time. Alright, so next up, Junkbot might be the cutest puzzle game ever made. I'm in love with this little guy. This is a officially licensed Lego Flash game, which there were a few of, but I really only played this one for any length of time. And it's like a Lemmings style puzzle game where you have to guide your little guy to a goal while he's like walking on his own and running into obstacles and stuff. And the difference though is that you have to, excuse me, you have to place, Jesus Christ, Legos to make a, you know, a path for him. And I just think it's so neat how they incorporate the mechanics of playing with Legos into the level designs of this game. Because to complete the game properly, you have to use as few moves as possible. So instead of just like, you know, meticulously making a Lego bridge for him, you want to look at the level architecture and look for the outlines of structures that could be repurposed as like stairs or barriers. And it's very cool because if you innately understand how Legos work, that aspect of the game becomes way easier because you can just kind of like look at the outlines and figure out, oh, I have to grab this one and drag this way so that I don't, you know, screw up. The reason that made such an impact on me was because it's very hard to make Flash games feel like physical and real, you know, and this does, not just because of the link to a real-life toy, but also because the sound design on these Legos is just, it's just the best shit in the world. Not to mention, like, Junkbot is a 21st century fucking icon. He's just broke and he wants to eat trash. We all understand that. Everyone can understand that. Quick interlude, this is not a forgotten Flash game. The helicopter game is not a forgotten Flash game. It's an extremely well-remembered Flash game. But I just want to really quickly make the case that helicopter game is definitively better than Flappy Bird. I'm the only person grinding this axe, and I know that, but this is important to me, okay? Because it's fucking true. In Flappy Bird, hear me out, in Flappy Bird, there is only ever one point of passage past an obstacle. Because it's just the middle of a pipe, right? But in helicopter game, there are almost always two, because the randomly generated barriers that come up are positioned in the center of the screen, so you can go over or under, and that simple difference just makes a world of difference in terms of dynamic decision-making gameplay. Why has no one made a creepypasta based on the helicopter game? Like, I'm not a creepypasta person, but it writes itself. I mean, it's already kind of uncanny to begin with. You could just like start like filtering in some weird shit in the background. I don't have an outfit change this time, but my prophecy of the week is that the next big thing in video game creepypasta scary stories is going to be Flash games. Okay, so I screwed up. I've been an idiot. I try not to self-deprecate, but like this is a major mistake, oversight in this video, because I wanted to include a segment about a dress-up game. A dress-up Flash game, one of the biggest Flash game genres. Honestly, dress-up games are like the most unfairly maligned Flash game type ever. Barely ever see discussion of them on YouTube, and when I do, it's shit-talking, frankly, and I'm not gonna stand for that. That's fucked up. They're fun. I'm gonna be playing Dress Up Fairy and talking about it. I picked that just cause I like fairies a lot. Like, I was never like a horse girl or like a dragon person. I think the closest thing I had to that was maybe fairies. Or like maybe animals, you know, just in general. Let's see what we got here. There she is. I'm thinking, I'm thinking we should do like a character here. Like, I'm creating an OC right now. Oh, if you click the butterfly, you can change the background. That's... Very distracting. Yeah, so I don't know what kind of goofy archetype we should go with. Like, I like, she could be a horse girl. I mean, that's kind of, the stripes are fun, but I don't know. Arm socks, I think, are a must just because of the time period alone. Horse girls just wear brown, right? That's boring. Let's do a dragon girl. I guess we'll do like green as an accent color. She definitely wears this top. I guess her hair could be green. I need to figure out, we need to nail this character down. I'm thinking, okay. How about like a spoiled, douchey dragon girl? Like a holier-than-thou kind of, we need to give her really annoying bangs, is what I'm thinking. I'm looking at this one, and it feels right to me. No offense to anyone who has this hairstyle, but I'm doing a bit, okay? I'm hoping there's something kind of like draconic here, because the butterfly wings are not cutting it. Oh, baby. Oh, that's what we need. That's the one. Okay. Okay, this is coming together. Waterfall is fine. Yeah, can't you picture this girl like going on some forum and getting really huffy about how Dragon Riders of Pern is actually science fiction? I was never all in on dragons. I did read Aragon. That's an impressive book if you take into account the fact that it was written by a teenager, but that's the best thing I have to say about it. This is not gonna be my all-time best character design. Clogs, oh my god. I feel like it's gotta be these lace-up boots, but like, they don't... They're black. They could be black. Yeah, okay. She's feeling superior to others lately because her parents were able to get a special backorder copy of Dragonology from the bookstore. What does this do? Oh, it's skin tone. I think we're good on that. And that's actually kind of a cute choker. I'm hoping this mismatched jewelry will complete the ensemble. Oh, this is perfect. She's a mess, but I support her. I think she's got a lot of growth left to do. Maybe in college she'll discover like literary fiction or bisexuality or something. So the last game I want to talk about before we switch gears is this weird little Newgrounds art game, I guess, called Transmigration. The word transmigration, it's related to reincarnation. It refers to the movement of a soul from one body to another. So the way that manifests in gameplay is like, it's sort of a scrolling shooter type thing, shmup or whatever, but you're constantly swapping between bodies. As you're doing that, the orientation of the screen changes and the background visuals change and get more involved and more animated. And this is an interesting one, right? Like, it's a pretty short game, it's pretty simple, you know, by the standards of like what we expect from indie games now in terms of art. It's not that impressive, but like, as a preteen, this was pretty fucking transcendent to me. You know, I'd been exposed to a little bit of like psychedelic art and like weird movies and stuff. But this is one of the first things like that I actually found on my own. And that feeling of finding something weird and not knowing if you should share it or if it's too dorky to share or like who you would even share it with is just very potent at that age. And I think that's something that can still happen on the internet. Obviously, you can find weird stuff that no one's heard of, but like you have to really go out of your way. And it used to just happen. I think this game may be the origin of my love for cheesy trance music. Although, I don't know, my 11-year-old fixation on the HampsterDance techno remix also is definitely a big part of that. The song is called Chaos Fantasy, which is just adorable to me. And it was used in a ton of Newgrounds Flash games, so I think most people remember it from the Impossible game probably, but it holds up. I still like it. It's very charming. Apparently the programmer who worked on this game went on to be a technical designer at Naughty Dog and worked on a couple games with them. And that's amazing to me. It's very strange to think about. Like, cause in my ignorant preteen child brain, I was like, well, yeah, some guy made this game, then he just disappeared forever and is no longer part of my world. And obviously, like, I knew this intellectually, but it's so weird to think that the people who made these games are real people and I can go and look up how their careers have progressed since, you know, 2007 or 2005 or 2004. And they have cutesy little indie game studios and a YouTube channel I can watch. And it's just, is tripping me out a little bit. It's tripping me out a little bit too much. When people talk about the differences between generations raised on the internet and generations that came before the internet, I think, you know, it's a lot of negativity in that kind of conversation. Obviously, intergenerational discourse is pretty bullshit. It's, in my opinion, mostly misplaced class consciousness. But what I'm getting at is that it's kind of amazing to think that if you were born after, you know, I don't know, 1990 or something, then a lot of the formative media experiences that you had as a child come from these weird little experiments made by individual people, regular people who are not keyed into like an ecosystem of mass entertainment. Because Flash games and Flash websites were huge, but this is not mass media, right? I mean, it is in a way, but it's something closer to like, I don't know, folk art? Is that too much of a stretch? I guess you could say that this represents like the beginning of a fusion between mass media and folk art, if you want to call it that came to later characterize the experience of being on the internet. And this is in a lot of ways where it started. When I think about like what a utopian vision of the internet would look like, this is not too far off, right? I mean, I think the highest, most important, most sacred purpose of the web and of internet technology is to distribute creative tools that are simple and accessible to as many people as possible, and then to give them the means to share the things they make with those tools as widely as they can. And that's Flash. That's what Flash means to me. And in some ways that spirit does live on, you know, in the form of things like YouTube or TikTok or, you know, at one point Vine. Like, as horrible as the internet is, as horrible as it's getting, as horrible as it always was, you know, the more and more corporatized it gets, that's one thing that I think they can't take away from us, right? The genie's out of the bottle. User-created content will always be part of the internet. And that one little foothold that we have, it's just, I don't know, it gives me a little sliver of hope. I'm being corny, sorry. So there is a flip side to this, and that's that the internet was a much different place back then. not only technologically, pre-social media, but also culturally. Things were just more violent, you know, meaner, more openly bigoted. Not that the internet isn't openly bigoted today, but it was worse and it was expected. And a lot of these games that we were playing were like, blow up this kitten, you fucking coward. Like, shoot this little cartoon dog and watch his cartoon guts splatter everywhere. Isn't that funny as hell? Punch Osama in the face or you're a little traitor bitch. And like, don't get me wrong, right? I'm not shedding any tears over this in 2021, but I was a sensitive child, so it was a little bit difficult for me to navigate the internet, having to worry about running into weird, scary shit. You know, I was so paranoid about like screamer pranks and stuff like that. So I didn't have a lot of just chill online spaces that I could be comfortable in without having to be just a little bit on edge. Of course, that would all change when YouTube launched and I witnessed the birth of Nightcore song edits with that one Windows Movie Maker rainbow filter over them. So I want to talk about this specific website because of how different it was from that. Because it was just kind of quiet and gentle. But gentle without being like cloying. It is a little bit twee, but I mean, sometimes you're in the mood for twee. So this website is called Original. It's a collection of 62 Flash games, all made by one man. His name is Ferry Halim. He was a game developer, you know, in the early 2000s, and a lot of his professional projects, at least back then, were Flash games for big media brands like Cartoon Network and stuff like that. But he also had this personal webpage where he would upload all of his personal game projects. And these are just a lovely set of games. The website was pretty successful at the time. It got some awards and was decently well known, but since then, I have seen very little discussion about it. The games are all kind of tied together by a similar art style. You know, it's very blobby, soft, lineless vector graphics. And you know I love a round blobby character. You know I love a round blobby character. And the music too is really, really nice. Like, probably, okay, if I had been an adult at the time on this website, they may have sounded like goofy, like stock production tracks, but I don't have that context, so I'm perfectly comfortable weeping as I listen to them. Not in like a sad way. I love crying. It's a hobby of mine. Outside of aesthetics, the thing that sets these games apart is that they're really good. Big shocker there. But I mean, the design of these games, some of them are really tight. The early ones obviously are not as refined, but it's actually fun to go in chronological order and watch Halim kind of like learn better and better game design strategies. They actually do remind me of Nintendo games a lot, not because they're cute and child-friendly, but because they focus on really simple mechanics and then will match that mechanic with like character and scenario and, you know, visual motifs that just make it work perfectly. Like this game where you're warping around little different spots on a screen but you can't miss or else you die is about a frog that can't swim. That's cute. I don't want video games to make me feel like Spider-Man, alright? Fuck Spider-Man. I want to feel like a frog. A lot of Flash games and a lot of mobile games are designed with like an arcade style sensibility. It's Snake. I hope you like Snake because it's pretty much just Snake. But of course the best Flash games and the best mobile games really feel like they're iterating on old arcade design standards, and Original does that better than almost any Flash website I've seen. Let's take Snake as a case study, right? Like, how many times have you seen a game meaningfully improve on the concept of Snake? Because I've seen it just a handful of times, and I think that this chicken game on Original, it's called The Hatchings, might be the best version of Snake ever made. It takes the very basic concept of don't touch the little pixel guys that are coming out of you and makes a couple meaningful tweaks on that formula. For example, what if some of the pixels didn't follow you, they just had other behaviors? And what if you actually have to touch the pixels, but only at a strategic moment after you've let a score multiplier build up? This is kind of a minor detail, but I love how each of these games has a different aspect ratio. Like, this is the film studies nerd in me, but I love that Flash games so often would have their own unique frame, shape, and size to match like the genre of the game that it's in and the design of the game. That's something that I think genuinely has been lost. You know, that can still happen in like PC games, but on mobile, you really only have a handful of aspect ratios that you can actually use. And I think that's kind of sad. That kind of standardization really makes it way harder to formally experiment. Okay, I'm talking my ass off about this, so I'm just gonna go quickly through some of my favorites on the site. Obviously there's the frog one, there's the chicken one. I also love wake-up calls. This is the cutest thing ever made. It's like you're a little blobby mouse falling through tree branches and shooting seed pellets at chrysalises to wake them up for spring. This is what it looks like in my brain when someone is trying to verbally explain the rules of a board game to me. I'm also a big fan of Bugs. It's very similar to the Hatchings, but I played this a lot more as a kid. It's a lot more slower paced and very calming. I would come to this game a lot to kind of calm down. That's a very warm memory for me. And I love the weird pastel globe that you're walking on. I love the sound design of the bugs flitting away. Very, very sweet. And then finally there's Sunny Day Sky. This to me is the definitive helicopter-like. It's one of the best games on the site, and also it has a very good iOS port that Halim himself made. And if you're like into these games and you're interested in what they were like but you don't want to bother with emulation, definitely download this iOS version. But yeah, that's most of what I have to say on that. I feel so much gratitude to Fairy, to Mr. Halim. Just what a nice thing that someone would make these nice little games and put them up for totally free with no ads, with no path to monetization. I would never ask a creative person to do that. You gotta make money, unfortunately. But just the fact that it did happen is special. You know, it's just what a generous thing. And the fact that they're just nice for the sake of being nice, right? They're really not trying to trade on the marketing appeal of wholesome content. Okay, I've been talking my ass off. My delivery has not been great. I've been hammering on fucking arrow keys for 3 hours and my wrists feel like they're gonna die, so let's go for a walk. So one set of Flash games that I always thought were extremely cool, but I didn't really have the brain cells to understand, were the Bionicle Maranui point-and-click adventure games. These were made to promote, obviously, LEGO's Bionicle toys, and Bionicle is interesting to me because of how intimately it's tied to Flash, because the launch of the Bionicle brand was totally Flash-based, on a Flash-based website with this first game, pretty much is the only window into the story of what these characters are supposed to be about. There were also like some animations and stuff later on that were also done in Flash, and I didn't really watch these. I tried to play the game, maybe got like 20 minutes in before I gave up and was frustrated, because I had barely even started playing, you know, real normal video games at that age. I was pretty much just content to be an insufferable nerd and like read all the encyclopedia entries they had and stuff. But it's really interesting to see that kind of early attempt at like a multimedia marketing strategy. Obviously everyone does that now. I happen to think it's a pretty dog shit way of telling a story, but at the time it was cool because I was, you know, 7 or something. I think the reason that people remember the setting and story and characters of Bionicle so fondly is in large part because of these point-and-click games. The Templar Studios, I think, is the name of the developer, and they did amazing work on these games. I haven't really replayed much of them for this video, but I wanted to talk about them because of just how fucking cool they still are 20 years later. The fact that they were able to squeeze this much tone and atmosphere out of Flash, which by all accounts is kind of a crappy program to use, is really amazing and impressive. A lot of early Flash games feel kind of empty and uncanny and like eerie and vacant, which I think is why a lot of Flash developers went for the fucking balls to the wall overstimulation approach. But the people at Templar used that emptiness as a strength instead of a weakness, and used that to lend just a really weirdly good sense of place to these game environments. It looks like there's some pretty high quality mods and stuff that like make the game more playable and make it look better and stuff and fix bugs. So seek that out if you're into point and clicks, or if you're into Bionicle, or if you're just, I don't know. A year or two ago I rediscovered these animations. You know, some of them are cutscenes from the game, some of them were made after the fact. And I watched through all of them. There are long like compilations of them on YouTube, and it was really fun, you know, because I didn't really have that much of a window into what the story of Bionicle was going for. I was kind of bummed when I watched through all of them, because I mean, there's a decent number, but they don't span very much runtime. So I was like, I wish I could have experienced this at the time, you know, over a longer period of time and had more to watch and more to process. So I did some research and I ended up finding an animator who was actually making new ones in Flash, and they're actually really good. I don't think I'll make a habit of like profiling small creators and stuff, because I really don't know about that many, to be brutally honest. But I was so impressed by Emily's work. Emily is the animator's name, and her YouTube channel is called Perry Animates Things. I'll link to it in the description and put a card and stuff, whatever. I don't usually go in for like fan works. I usually prefer original concepts with original characters, but it's just a neat idea, this is, right? And Emily does a good job with them because they feel distinct from the original shorts. I think her scripts are a lot more lively than some of the classic ones. Like, just there's more humor, dialogue's a little bit easier, and you get an impression that there's like more of a personality behind some of the archetypes. And there's just a lot of cute little details. Like, I don't know, this might be in the official ones, but I don't remember seeing it. But like when someone gets an exclamation point over their head, it's styled like the fake writing system from Bionicle lore, which is, that's so cute. And most importantly, there are now lesbian Bionicles. She put lesbians into Bionicle, so there are Bionicle lesbians in Bionicle. And I think we peaked. You know, I don't think we really have any need for any new kinds of entertainment media, because we can just take this concept of lesbian Bionicles and develop it until the heat death of the universe.
Lesbian Bionicles will redeem humanity. This is what will heal the Earth and bring us beyond the stars and reverse entropy.
So yeah, if you're a fan of that, check her out. Hey kids, Layvok here. That sure was a fun YouTube video, wasn't it? Bionicle was a fun toy line, and it made a lot of people happy in the early 2000s. But did you know that in 2001, the Maori nation threatened a lawsuit against the LEGO Group for using words and sacred concepts lifted directly from the Maori language without asking them first? These people have had to work hard for generations to maintain ownership of their culture and ensure the survival of their language. LEGO did change the terminology, and after that point they kind of moved away from the whole exotic island racist thing, but still pretty scummy. Sometimes a piece of media we like does the wrong thing. When that happens, don't just stick your head in the sand and pretend like it doesn't exist. Reckon with it, try to understand it, and then maybe, in the future, we can enjoy things more fully and more completely without harming others. Listen to your buddy Layvok. Cultural appropriation is no good. This is so stupid. Okay, that's about all I've got. If there are other Flash games that people remember that they wish that I'd touched on, that they want to reminisce about, feel free to do that in the comments. It helps me and it's nice for you, maybe. Also, like if you liked it, subscribe if you liked it, you know, do the